What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
Yo, what's up, Rebels, and welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I talk to the rebels who are shaping youth culture. We find out how they do it, why they do it, and what you can do to get a little piece of the pie for yourself. I'm your host, Josh Levine. My guest today is Daniel from the LA Riots. They're a DJ and production team here out of LA. And these are some of the most versatile guys in the business. They're in every genre you can imagine of dance music, from drum and bass to house to electro, indie rock. They're making it happen. They're producing and remixing everybody from Kylie Minogue to Tricky to Nero to Lady Gaga. They're all over the map. And they're putting out their own records on some of the top labels in the business. Daniel's got some great stories for you today, talking about how they've evolved their sound over the years, how they've avoided some of the pitfalls that come from commercial success. Good stuff. I think you'll enjoy this episode. Let's get into it right after our EDM.com track of the week. That was the EDM.com track of the week. That was Rod and Michael Saint Laurent with a track called Turn It Up. If you like that one, get over to EDM.com for more new music. And let's get into the interview with Daniel from LA Riots.
They say you're dirty, that you're no good, that you won't love me.
Do you know Yellow Wolf?
Yeah.
I went, randomly. I ended up going to New Zealand with him and DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia.
Yeah.
Last New Year's, they took me, and I met Paul when we got on the plane, and I met Wolf like the day before, briefly, when he came over to my house and asked me to go to New Zealand with him, and I was like, because it was weird, he needed a DJ, he had gone through some shit and fired everybody, and I have a New Zealand passport, so I didn't need a visa.
Yeah.
And one of my good friends was managing him, so he was like, "Oh, I got this guy that could go and be your DJ." And I had to go and perform in front of it was 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of his songs. And we got there on New Year's Day because we left here the 29th. We landed there on the 31st because you skip a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucked for him because the 30th is his birthday, so we skipped that entire day.
No way.
And then,
Birthday in the airplane.
Yeah, and we were all separated. And there was I think 8 or 9 of us going. And so the night before the show, I finally was like, "Yo, I really don't know any of your music. I don't know how this is gonna work." And he was like, and I was like, he's like, "Man, I don't have anything," because his last DJ had kind of bailed on him. They had a little falling out. But they're good now.
Yeah.
But took all his music, and I was like, shit. "Yo, let's Google some track listings from set lists from your shows." And I Googled a bunch, and then pulled up a bunch of pictures that fans had put up of track listings, of set lists.
Yeah.
And I went through, and he was like, "Okay, we'll play that one. We'll play this one. We'll play this one." Went through, figured out the order. Then I just went to my room, and this was 4 a.m. Everybody was partying, and I downloaded all of his songs off of Amazon. So he had to basically just rap over CD tracks.
Yeah.
And then he would tell me, "Oh, for this
just
song."
instrumentals.
No, not even instrumentals.
Oh, no way. With vocals.
Full-on vocal tracks. We had no choice.
Yeah.
And then he was like, this right here, I want it to break down. They would do all these things, break down into AC/DC Back is Black. So I would go and get the instrumental for that, and then be able to do something so he could go off on a freestyle. But it was crazy. But it was good.
That's
and then
wild.
at the very end, when it was cool because I live downtown, and so I have a lot of neighbors that are DJs.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them were over there DJing in the other rooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they were all like bugged out. They were like, "What are you doing here?
That's
when do
funny.
you start listening to Yellow Wolf?" But yeah, I ended up playing that, and then at the very end, he like brought me out onto the front of the stage, and he was like, "Yo, he's from New Zealand, blah blah blah. He hasn't been home in a while," and everybody, it was crazy.
That's cool.
I think I actually have a video of it. It was good.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I think like, you know, fans probably just assume that like, you know, you're DJing for a guy because you. Oh wow! Oh, that's a real show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, he had canceled his entire tour, and we didn't even say, I was like, "Yo, don't say I'm from," like, never mention that I'm from LA Riots. Like, so he just used my Instagram handle for my
Right.
personal one, like Daniel Riots.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, it was pretty crazy. And then like the next day, they took us to like where the Hobbits are. They filmed the Hobbit and stuff like that. We got private tours. It was
Nice.
It was rad. And then
That's
we played a
awesome.
club and shot a music video actually that I was in for one of his songs
Oh wow,
the next night, and then we all flew home.
that's cool.
And that was it. I was like, I can't do this again. Not my
That's
thing.
hilarious.
Because I don't know what to
mean-
do. I'm not like, like DJing now is like, the lights are all on you. You
Yeah.
got a mic. You're on top of the DJ, but you're doing everything but DJing. And I'm like, I'm not against that, but I just don't do that stuff.
Right.
I've never spoken on the mic. So for me to
Right.
sit back there and like play a track and then like, what do I do for 4 minutes while you're rapping,
Right.
And I
Yeah,
don't
you
even
just gotta stand there, right?
Oh no, I don't even drink, and I just got wasted
Did you?
like the entire time. And what was funny was like Bone Thug couldn't make it into town. Like they couldn't clear customs, I guess, because they probably had a
Yeah,
record, obviously.
I'm sure.
So DJ Paul comes up to me. He's like, "Yo, you know 3 6 Mafia songs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know a lot of them." He's like, "Yo," he's like, "I'm gonna take their place. Can you play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be your DJ." I knew his songs more than I knew Wolf's. It was pretty funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I have a friend who DJs for a band who I'm not going to mention, and I'll get text from him when I'm like, "Aren't you on stage right now?" And he's
You're like, yeah. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. That was a good time though.
That's crazy.
And then we did a small show though at a club.
Uh-huh.
That's where we shot the video for.
Oh, cool.
But it was crazy because like I had to DJ before and it was like I could tell that like they didn't care who was playing. Everybody just came for like that Yellow Wolf show, so I
Yeah.
felt stupid there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it worked out. I did one other show with him for a cancer benefit, like I guess like 2 weeks after we got back. It was
Oh,
like for
cool.
Danny Way down in down in San Diego.
Yeah.
And that one actually went a lot smoother because I
Right.
knew the music by that point.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure. That's cool though. Sometimes you gotta just roll with it.
Oh yeah, it was
Figure it
good.
out. Yeah.
Good experience.
Nice.
And I got like treated like a king for a week in New Zealand. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, thanks for coming to talk to us, man.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
no doubt.
excited to dig into your story a little bit. I like the music,
Yeah.
and
We've been switching it up lately.
Yeah?
A lot. Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about that. Tell me how. I always like to kind of start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, like, how'd you first discover electronic music?
Oh man, it was in the
Wait.
like mid '90s.
Uh-huh.
I was in college in North Carolina, and so John's from North Carolina.
Okay.
That's where I met him. But yeah, like these guys were just handing out flyers back before there was social media.
Yeah.
You know, you had to actually like go and flyer your town
Sure.
for raves, and yeah, I had gotten one of the flyers, and I was like, you know, it was the flyer team actually were the promoters, and they're actually guys that now do events out here. They used to be
Oh, really?
Atlanta and North Carolina based, and I think they were doing Avalon for years.
Oh, cool.
Liquefied
Uh-huh.
was the promoter.
Yeah,
It's this guy, Damien from England,
Okay.
that had moved to Atlanta and was doing like raves on the East Coast between North Carolina and Atlanta. And yeah, one of the guys gave me a flyer, and I was like, oh, I'm actually going to this. I'm bringing a bunch of friends, and so they were like, oh, come, you know, hang out with us when you get there. So I ended up hanging out with them, and then
That was your first rave?
no, it wasn't my first one, but
Yeah.
I had gone to a couple, but like that's where I really, really got into it. And you know, back then it was like way more underground, and
Yeah.
we're seeing acts like Rabbit in the Moon and Josh Wink and DJ3 and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
the funky techno tribe from
Uh-huh,
here,
yeah.
Doc Martin a lot.
Yeah.
And man, it was good. I kind of got spun a little bit. Did a lot of drugs back then.
Sure.
And then
It happened.
yeah, when I finally like got out of that, like the party phase, I just kind of picked up DJing, and
So was it at that point, or you know, even before that, like when you're first discovering it, was it the music, was it the scene, or could you even distinguish between those
it
two?
was the music.
Yeah.
I remember like I don't even know, like maybe like a year or two into it, like was when Daft Punk Homework came out,
Uh-huh.
and The Funk.
Yeah.
I heard that track and I was like, whoa.
Sure.
Like, and then, you know, Rabbit in the Moon and Josh Wink, Higher State of Consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, we were very fortunate. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, you lived in North Carolina. It was probably a little backwoods. But no, a lot of people would travel from D.C. and New York and Florida to come to, you know, a lot of
big
people.
college town.
Yeah. A lot of people did follow like the drug scene kind of, but then there were a lot of people that were just in it because we threw really good parties. I became part of that crew
Oh,
that
cool.
started throwing the parties,
Nice.
helping them out. And then, you know, that's when I started DJing and I got put on.
Uh-huh.
And like my first event that I ever played was like 3,000 people.
Nice.
So it was a little intimidating.
What was that feeling?
I was scared. I was
Yeah.
shaking. Yeah, it was like, it's so different because like, you know, you're playing in your house and
Right.
everything sounds all crisp. And
So
then
you'd
you
been
get up.
messing around at home.
Yeah, I mean, and those guys were techno DJs and super technical back then.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was records,
Sure.
and so there was a little bit more skill involved than there is now. It wasn't a visual thing, where I feel like now it's
Right.
more than half of it is visual. You just look on your computer screen or even look on the CDJ. But yeah, like I remember I couldn't hear in the headphones. It was just like, no matter how loud I turned up
too
the
loud.
headphone, it was
Yeah.
just too loud. My ears weren't accustomed to it. And
Yeah.
I think I train wrecked a couple mixes, which again, I feel like nowadays people train wreck quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Nobody
get frowned
cares.
upon, but back then,
Yeah.
man, you train wreck, they would boo you.
Yeah.
You know, they were there more for the music and not for the champagne showers and stuff.
I
like
remember
that.
I played. I'm not a DJ, but I've pretended to be one. If you know, from now
A lot of people do that.
now and then. So like, I played a thing at a bowling alley, and it was all beat junkies
Oh, nice.
and me, and I was like
Yeah.
the opener or whatever. And you know, they were super cool to me and
Yeah.
you know, generous and whatever when I was messing up. But like that, like 5 seconds felt like 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just over you're trying to get just over to the next record,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, this is taking so long.
You just stress out that whole
yeah.
time.
Yeah, totally. So stressful.
Yeah. Who's Beat Junkies? Is that Babu and all those guys?
Yeah, Babu, Melody, all those. It's just an incredible DJ.
Yeah. Real DJs.
Yeah,
Real DJing.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then what was like, was there a break or like a point where everything kind of got easier?
Well, you know, I was, when I first started out, I was just strictly like just doing drum and bass.
Yeah.
And I did that for, I don't know, like probably like 8 or 9 years, just as a hobby. I never was trying to like do that for a
Yeah.
living. And then
What was it? What was the living?
I worked an office job.
Uh-huh.
I was a reports analyst. I created databases and stuff for a big Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
And I decided one day that I was just going to move out to California. My brother lived out here, and I just didn't want to go down that North Carolina path of,
Yeah.
you know, getting married, having 2 kids, getting a house, white picket fence. So I sold my record collection. I quit DJing, and I moved to I moved to California. I drove across country, and yeah, I settled in with my brother. I think that was around like 2003.
Mm.
And then I worked actually here in casting. I ran casting sessions, and I worked
wow.
for LA Casting, and you know, worked on a lot of big campaigns.
Is that a fun job? Because I like we've done a little bit of casting for like promo girls.
Yeah, I mean,
And like people, you know, the guys around the office
yeah.
usually kind of love that.
yeah. Well, we were doing more stuff for like, like Apple commercials. We were doing those campaigns. We were doing like the T-Mobile campaigns and stuff like that, and some music videos. And there would be some times where like, you'd get like, oh, it's a hot girl day, you know. But then after a while, you notice like you just start seeing the same people.
For sure.
Especially when you've been doing it for a while and you just get to know everybody, and you're just kind of, I don't know, it just comes with the territory, I guess. But all that casting couch stuff, that, I don't know, I never experienced any of that world. So I actually, John had moved to Phoenix and was doing like a down-tempo group that Thievery Corporation and a bunch of acts like that were interested in signing, but I think he was doing it with an ex-girlfriend who I knew from North Carolina as well. They split. I think John moved back to North Carolina, and we'd been friends from the drum and bass days because he actually was the first American that LTJ Bookham had signed.
Oh, wow.
So he was signed to Good Looking and doing stuff with like TB and Calix and a bunch of people like that.
Okay.
And I had moved out here, and I told him, I was like, yo, why don't you move out of North Carolina, you could probably do some music stuff here, and I can get you a job in casting. So he moved out here and started running camera for casting sessions.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that Serato came out. And I was like, oh, wait, you don't have to buy records. And, granted, like, when I was buying drum and bass records, those were all imports.
Yeah.
So it was like you were paying $10.99
for singles
plus shipping, living in North Carolina and listening to tracks. Like I used to call Breakbeat Science in New York and Forefront in Boston. And I mean, the dude at Forefront, a lot of people in drum and bass know him. He was really good at selling. Yeah. And these are the days, this is pre like internet streaming, you know? Like you hold the phone up to the speaker.
No way.
You can't hear bass lines or anything like that. And he'd just be like, oh, you hear that? His name was Scotty. And he was really good. And I used to always compete with, because Diesel Boy used to get his tracks from there.
Okay.
And so it'd be like, I knew I'd had to call before Damien would call and get the records. But Damien knew the records. He probably didn't even have to listen on the phone, but I did. And
we had stores out here that.
Yeah. Well, he was Philly.
Oh, that's
then.
right.
Yeah, he was Philly, but like, a lot of those records were hard to get. I think he did the buying at 611, which was Nigel Richards' spot, but sometimes Scotty would get like promos in because he had the relationship with a lot of the drum and bass DJs from the UK.
Sure.
So I would, I burned through a lot of money, and I sold my whole collection. Wow. And so I moved out here, and then, Serato came around, and then blogs was where everybody got their music from. And so I picked up Serato, and it's funny, I made a mixtape, which, a mix CD, which people apparently didn't do in the hipster indie electro mastercraft justice world. They didn't do that to get gigs. It was just more like, oh, you're friends with me, you DJ, come. This was a Steve Aoki, like Frankie Chan days, and I gave those guys CDs. I remember giving Frankie Chan a CD, and he kind of like looked at me like, whoa, this is weird, And
is that right?
Yeah, because that's where I came from. Like, you wanted to get put on, like, and I came from drum and bass, where like, if you weren't tight, like, they let you know. You know?
They had a whole different thing.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I used to do a club with Steve and Frankie.
Oh, okay.
Called Loose Tooth.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Did you play?
Where was that at?
So we started at Forbidden City on Vine, and then we moved to Joseph's.
I remember. I didn't go to any of those.
For a while.
I think they brought it back at one point too.
Yeah, there was like I think so.
Okay, I think that's where I went. Was the Loose Tooth? I remember that.
So it was, but it was the opposite. It was exactly what you're talking about. It was like some dudes, and it's funny because
Lindsay Lohan DJing. It was Lohan back then. Now it's Lohan. She moved the accent, but she would DJ.
Yeah.
When she was coming up.
Sure.
People like that. It was more like you would get bands to DJ, and it's like
just
me
random.
as a DJ. It's just like I'm not going to get up the stage and be like, "Yo, let me play guitar while you guys like hang out." Like that just doesn't happen. But it happens the opposite direction. Like band dudes.
Yeah.
Like I've been in situations where like band dudes have been like a dick to me, and
really?
Yeah. I'm not naming.
To me, that feels like the beginning of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can name names if you...
I was gonna say I was not gonna name names, but Tokyo Police Club can go fuck them. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Like, can go fuck themselves. Those dudes. One of the guys was a dick to me because like I'm not like a very like, I'm the type of dude I show up and I'm like, hey, I'm on the guest list, and they're like, oh, your name's not here, and I'm like, okay, bye. I'm not that dude that's like, no, you know, and like, I remember one time I was playing a Red Bull event, and those guys were DJing, and by DJing I mean they were literally playing an iPod.
Yeah.
And it was an after party for like one of the big like New York festivals that goes on out there, but it was more like band and DJ.
Okay.
I forget which one it was, but Red Bull had flown us all out to do this, and I was waiting to go on, and some fan of theirs, or I don't think he was even a fan, he asked me if they could play a certain song, and I was like, you know, I don't know, like, I'll try and see. And then there was two of them working an iPod.
That two-man iPod.
One of the guys like looked back at me, and I was about to go on, and I was like, hey, this guy wants to know if you could play, and he was just like the biggest prick to me.
Really?
And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get up there and just like make you look stupid. And I went up there and made him look stupid.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, but yeah, it was back in those days when.
Well, that seemed like the beginning of because, you know, I think, before that, you had to kind of like prove yourself as a DJ, right?
Yeah.
And that definitely, I remember at Loose Tooth, because I knew a lot of DJs from previous eras.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's like just this random guys who you could tell.
Who dress cool.
Yeah.
It was more image based.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But you know, you could tell they'd never been up there before.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and Steve, like, to his credit, I mean, he was still figuring it out.
Oh yeah.
At the time.
He was, for sure.
And
there was a lot of questionable mixes, but like
he's figured it out.
Yeah, he did.
You
know, these guys were like, they were throwing Block Party over like Biggie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know, like over like Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah, and all these like rad bands, and just mixing genres like with no regard for anything, but it was fun. That's what you could say about those days. It was like balls to the wall, like just fun.
Yeah, it was just like anything goes.
Yeah.
Make it fun. Nothing else matters. Where I think we come from an era before that where everything mattered.
Yeah.
You know, genre and, you know, tempo and like, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So I got put on though by this guy Keith that used to do Moscow and Club 82 and all this stuff, and he started a night called La Disco. And he got 3 resident DJs. This was before he even DJs. Now he DJs all over Hollywood, but he got me and Paparazzi and this guy Chris White, who goes by White now. And we started a night, and it was really successful. And then after I think doing it about a year, I hit up Steve, and I was like, you know, hey, if you guys ever have the need for a remix, you know, I've dabbled in production, and my buddy John and I, we want to do something. And he kind of he gave us stems to a remix for this band called the Scanners. They were doing, and this is when Dimmock would put out like a remix EP, but would have like 10 different remixes for one song, because you didn't get paid for it, so it's just like stack it on there. Somebody's gonna pick it up for one of these remixes. The label would make money, and he was like, you know, if it's good, we'll include it as the last track on this maxi single. This is the deadline, and so we did it. We turned it into him, and it became the first track on the maxi single, and that was a song, "Low Life" by the Scanners. And we didn't have a name, and they were like, well, what do we call you guys? And we couldn't figure it out, and happened to be like the 15-year anniversary of the LA Riots. It was all over the news, and they had given us a month to come up with a name, and we couldn't figure out anything. And so we saw that on the news, and we were like, yeah, let's just call ourselves LA Riots. And I mean, truth be told, I didn't really like it. I don't even really like it still a little bit, but in the same breath, we didn't realize that like a month later, when this track came out, like almost like literally every A&R from every major label was like hitting us up to do a remix. Like we got The Cure hit us up to do a remix.
Wow.
We did the title track off of a Kylie Minogue track. We did a bootleg for Justice that Justice ended up putting out.
Nice.
And then Mastercraft took us under their wings and kind of took us on tour, and it was just like it went off from there. Yeah.
Do you remember that feeling?
Oh yeah. it was really cool because like I think it was Herb. This is back when Herb magazine was around, and we were known for doing bootlegs, and they did this big article on the art of the bootleg, and the first 3 pages, I don't want to say they trashed, but they pretty much trashed like all it was basically like, this is how you don't do a remix, a bootleg. And then the last page of the article was like, this is how you do a remix and a bootleg, and it was basically all about us.
Yeah.
Because we had done 2 Justice remixes. We did one for the party and one for DVNO. And then we ended up playing for Frankie Chan a VMA award show party in Vegas for the VMAs, and it was Justice's after party because they were up for an award. I think that was either when Kanye jumped on stage or around the time when Kanye jumped on stage. So we played that, and we came from, again, drum and bass, where like if you bootleg somebody's tune, you could get beat down for that. Sure. I mean, Goldie and Digitalism, like those dudes didn't mess around with that, and so we were playing Justice's party and like avoiding them because we didn't know. Like we were just like, they're gonna be so pissed at us. And then John ended up talking to Busy P, and somebody's like, these are the guys that did this bootleg remix, and he's like, oh, we love it. Like we want to put it out, and you know, he introduced us to Justice, and it came out. But they only met John, which is really interesting because when it came out as the LA Riot. Singular remix.
Right.
And for the longest
time. He's the
time,
LA Riot.
Yeah. Like, I never met the guys. I was
That's
like
funny.
busy like partying.
Yeah.
I was having fun.
That's funny.
Yeah. It was a good feeling, man. Like,
yeah, sure.
It was just like, we felt like we were on, like, it was, I don't know, we knew we were at the beginning of something different, you know, like, especially like when the Justice album dropped, and then the whole Mastercraft thing, and, you know, they brought us along everywhere with us. Like, we toured Europe with them and did a few U.S. tours, and, you know, we're playing EDC and Lollapalooza and Coachella and all those stages. I guess we were kind of like the part of the whole West Coast surge, because there was, for a while, New York ran it with like LCD and the Misshapes and Trouble and Bass and all those guys, and then, you know, the West Coast came up with Guns and Bombs and us and Steve Aoki and all those parties like Fuck Yeah and all those things at Cinespace. So it was good. Yeah. It was rad. 10 years later.
That's awesome.
Plugging away. Oh man, it's about to be 11.
Wow.
It's going to be the anniversary.
Nice. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So, you know, I worked at Herb for a long time, and Raymond Roker is one of my closest friends, and years before that, he and Goldie had a misunderstanding. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this on the air, but Goldie broke his jaw.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fuck.
And
because he reviewed Rings of Saturn poorly. Deservedly kind of so. I didn't think it was that great. I mean, especially coming from, what was the first album? Inner City Life?
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't the album.
No.
Yeah.
Whatever the album was, but
fuzzy on names.
Yeah. But that album was like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And then he, you know, the follow-up, I mean, it was good. It just wasn't.
But I think it is back to like what we're talking about, that you come from this era where everything's taken so seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, late 2000s, like nothing is taken seriously anymore.
But I feel like drum and bass still takes itself seriously, and that's why it's not as it hasn't progressed out of there.
Sure. But drum and bass is an interesting one because, you know, it's never been commercially very important, but it's given, you know, dubstep doesn't exist without drum and bass. Trap doesn't exist without drum and bass, right?
Yep.
And so it's had like a much bigger influence than a commercial success.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's really interesting.
We still dabble and make drum and bass. We released a drum and bass track last year on Borgore's album, Borgore's label, on Bygore. We did a remix for Bring Back the Summer.
Oh, cool.
That Rain Man track. It was drum and bass. We actually, the end of last year, did a track with Daniel Pierce, who's Detail. He did the vocal on Sigma's Nobody to Love. So we did an original with him. I don't know if that'll ever see the light of day. But yeah, we still dabble in it if it makes sense.
Interesting.
I like listening to like Rudimental and Sigma and Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Do you ever listen to that guy?
No.
Wilkinson
I don't know.
is, oh man, he's a new guy. Not new, but he's the guy on Ram that's like
Okay.
Andy C's label that just like kills it with like stuff that you would hear on the radio.
Nice.
Like it's really good vocally stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all this starts happening for you guys. Do you sit down and kind of like make a plan, or what do you guys do as partners? How does that?
We don't have a plan. We
So-
didn't like plan anything. We just kind of like
You
rode
just
the
like
wave.
roll with it?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we had a manager and remix opportunities would come
Yeah.
in, and back then we were just like remixing anybody. Like,
And those don't pay a lot.
no, back then some of them did.
Right.
It was pretty lucrative, but
Yeah.
then the label started finding out that they weren't recouping much
Right.
because a lot of that stuff
Of course.
it didn't get played a lot in the clubs, you
Right.
know.
Yeah,
and that
and
was
I-
the whole reason for it. And now, mind you, like they don't want remixes; they just want collabs
Right.
with electronic artists. But
Yeah.
we did a speaking of Goldie, we did a remix recently for Tricky.
Uh-huh.
Who they had beef as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
they both dated Bjork.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
funny.
Like Tricky dated Bjork for a while, and then I think Goldie started dating her. And they had some beef.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
That's
especially
funny.
in drum, in drum and bass. Especially when it's Goldie.
Is that
He doesn't
stuff?
mess around. He's mellowed out though. He does like yoga and all kinds of stuff. now.
Yeah, I think I read
He's got a new album coming out.
some interview with him. I think it was the one where he dropped Banksy's name
Oh yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I was talking about that the other day with somebody.
Yeah. I don't know. I went and saw Massive Attack in Tokyo last month,
Oh wow.
and it was definitely not clear if Banksy was in the room or not. It's interesting, you know, you're working with Tricky and Massive Attack's on tour, and like, I don't know if that counts as a resurgence of that style of music, but
he dropped a new album.
yeah,
Tricky did.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of good playlists on Spotify are leaning that way.
yeah,
I was in a Uber yesterday, and I don't know what the guy was playing, but it was amazing, and it was just
Really?
like I was in the car thinking, man, this is like a good modern Massive Attack type of feel
Yeah.
to it.
yeah.
I mean, we might make stuff like that even. You know, we dabble in different styles.
Yeah,
We just don't want to make anything like we were making, like the big room kind of stuff that we got into, because I feel like you get accustomed to this lifestyle once you get a certain level of success.
yeah,
And then in order to sustain that lifestyle, you say you say yes a lot more than you should.
sure.
So we kind of went on hiatus for a while, and the first big remix we did was coming back out was for Tricky.
So how
It was
did
cool.
you-
He hit us up. You know, because a lot of times, I mean, we've remixed everybody from like Kings of Leon,
Yeah.
30 Seconds to Mars, Britney, Gaga, all of them, and we don't ever interact with them. People think
Right.
that it's like more
Yeah,
of a
yeah. You're not like hanging out.
collaboration. Yeah, no, it's
Right.
like the label sends you a stem and
Totally.
you remix it, and that's what happened with the Tricky. We did a remix for him, and then I posted something on our Instagram, and he commented on it that he loved the remix, and
Nice.
and I know that they were picky with that remix because they only put out ours and DJ Tennis's, and but I know other people that actually did the remix, and theirs never came
It
out.
didn't get picked. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a situation where they were trying to get as many remixes as possible and put it out. They were very selective, because when we turned it in, we didn't even hear anything back for over a month. We thought they rejected it. But yeah, then he DM'd us privately, and he was like, yo, if you guys ever need a vocalist, and we were like, if you ever need a legend on one of your tracks, hit me
That's
up.
cool. That's
Yeah.
great. So how do you, it's funny you say, like, I think for some people, the lifestyle, forget how you said it better than I do, but those trappings of success,
Yeah.
like for some people, that's the goal.
Yeah.
So how do you, you know, and I think even if you didn't necessarily set out with that to be the goal, once it starts happening to you, you know, it's hard to go from first class back to coach.
Yeah.
So, like, what was the conversation between the two of you, or in your own head, where you sort of come to that realization that we're like, we don't want to get trapped in that?
I don't think it was very much our decision.
Yeah.
The landscape of music changed.
Okay.
And so what we were doing was becoming less relevant. Trap and dubstep and all that started
Yeah.
to take over. And
Yeah.
then, like I said back in the beginning, like, the fans don't want you just to DJ, which at the end of the day, that's all you're doing up there.
Right.
Like, you're just DJing. All that throwing your hands in the air, jumping up and down, getting on the mic is, like, not
Right.
talent at
Yeah.
all. Sorry, it's not. I mean, you're entertaining, I get it, but, like, it's just like playing air guitar.
Right.
You know, it's just like it doesn't do anything. It's not doing anything.
Right.
And
Well, yeah.
so, you know, everything slowed down for us. And then, you know, we just kind of took a step back, and I was just like, wow, like, I like this. Like, I get time to stop and enjoy it a little bit more. And, you know, we started making better music. And I feel like we're not touring as much now, but the quality of our music is where I want it to be.
Nice.
You know, we are saying no a lot.
Yeah. So what's that process? How do you decide what to say no to?
Honestly, just if we like it, and if it just has like right now we have 2 remixes that are just sitting on the shelves waiting to come out. One of them's for a band called Crooked Colors that I really like, that are from Australia, and they're on a very good label. They're on Sweat It Out, and I really like Sweat It Out, and I've always wanted to play or put something out on that label. So we did 2 remixes for that band. We actually did one that's more indie, and then one that's more kind of like this style that we're into now, which is a little bit more tech house, a little bit more, it lends itself more to groove-based kind of mixing and to DJing. A lot of the tracks we make now, we want long intros. We want, like, to be able to mix a song for 3 or 4 minutes and actually, like, change it up a lot more.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing that. And then the second remix is for a band called Nations, and they did that track with Duke Dumont and Gorgon City. I forget the name of it, but it was a really big track last year. And so they are putting out a second single. And the reason I like Nations a lot is because Nikki Nighttime is part of Nations. Nations is Nat Dunn and Nikki Nighttime. I don't know if they're both from Australia. I know Nikki's from Australia. And the thing is, back when we all first started doing all this indie electro stuff, about in like 2007 to 2010, he was in a band that I really liked called Van Shee. And Van Shee had a DJ portion, or DJ project called Van Shee Tech. And Nikki was one of the songwriters and one of the people in Van Shee and Van Shee Tech.
Oh, cool.
One of my favorite songs, still to this day, is a song called Kelly. I put it on a mix CD that I did for Thrive Records back in the day that was like in Best Buy and all that stuff. But
Nice.
yeah, I was just always a really big fan of Nicky. And then when he met me, he told me he was a really big fan of LA Riots. And then I played him a lot of demos, and he was just going on and on about how clean the mixdowns were. And they weren't mastered, they were just mixed down, and I was playing it to him off my iPhone.
That's crazy.
And yeah, and so, you know, a lot of times we'll just hit somebody up, like directly, if we have that relationship with them. That's what happened with Sweat It Out. That's what happened with Nations. The Tricky Thing came through them. We did a remix for the Chainsmokers last summer that we didn't, it never came out. We put it on Soundcloud, and they retweeted it and put it in all their mixtapes and stuff for their radio shows. But yeah, like, a lot of it at this point just comes from relationships that we've made, because our name can get us in the door with a lot of people.
So when
which is
you talk
good.
about those relationships, like, do you do something to nurture those? Like, are you conscious about that?
No, I mean, I live in a building that has a lot of DJs that live in it, like GTA, Wax Motif. Next door is 12th Planet. Next door to that is AC Slater. Carnage used to live on the block. Skrillex lives just across town, and so there's like kind of like a crew that all hangs out together. And so, you know, I met Nikki through Wax Motif one night. He was over at his house, and then also Exchange nightclub is on my block.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So, you know, I
Sure.
walk my dog by there every day. He poops in front of it a lot.
On
But,
purpose.
yeah, no, it's funny. They always like complain about it. They're like, dude, your dog's always shitting in front of them. They love my dog. But yeah, like I go a lot to the shows there if there's somebody I want to see, because I feel like they get really good lineups for being such a big
Yeah,
club.
for sure.
And so I'll just go and meet a lot of people through that. Yeah, but I mean, now social media too, people, you know, you follow somebody, they follow you right back, and you usually just start talking there.
Yeah.
I don't remember how the Sweat It Out remix came about. Somebody introduced me to their A&R. I forget who happens to be, their A&R is Matt from Yolanda Be Cool.
Okay.
So I met them. And a lot of times, like, it's just through friends, but the Chainsmokers, I mean, those guys used to open for us back in the day in New York, you know, back when it was two different guys.
Oh, really?
It was one. Alex has always been the same guy, but then there was a different guy in the Chainsmokers, and then Drew is new. Drew is when they started having their success with Selfie and all that, was when Drew joined.
Yeah.
And the other guy had left the band on his own. And yeah, so, yeah, like I said, a lot of it, you know, I mean, we get, we've done video game scores and stuff like that. We did a remix for Weezer for PlayStation, and that was from going out to one of the Fuck Yeah nights that Aoki and them used to do, which was what Loose Tooth turned into.
Yeah.
Yeah, just hanging out, and one of the guys, you know, hey, you know, I work for PlayStation. I have this idea for an opening track, and yeah, it's just, you know, if I lived in North Carolina, obviously, I feel like I would have to nurture those relationships. But in LA, you know, you're hanging out with people all the time.
I mean, there's something to be said for living on the right block.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we toiled away for a long time, but in the same breath, I feel like, you know, like a lot of people, A-Track and people that I look up to as DJs, they really respect the way I mix because I'm super nerdy and technical with it. And, you know, like I help develop some of the Pioneer equipment because they've seen me DJ and they know that I'm into, you know, all that stuff. I beta test a lot of the stuff, and they bring a lot. I have a set of.
Is that a good experience? Like.
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like I can say this now, but when the CDJ 2000 came out, shortly after that, they had the Nexus over at my house, and you know it was all taped up. The name of what it was and all that stuff, but they brought you know the people from the designer, one of the designers from Japan, over to my house, and they had me like mess with it and tell them, you know, certain things. And it's cool too, because like if I'm in Record Box and I feel like it should do something else, I can hit them up and be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you did this?
Nice.
And you could sort by this or do this. And you know, sometimes they take that stuff into account and you see it in the next update. So it's cool. Yeah, it's a good feeling. But
so what do you do, back to something you're talking about earlier, what do you do in your partnership when one guy wants to say yes to something and the other wants to say no?
We don't ever really have that.
Really?
We get along. I mean, I've known John for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's this perfect example, this part, I mean, not on a yes or no thing, but like, even still, like, he could work on something for a long time on his own and bring it to me. and like there's this part where he carried something out for 16 bars, and for me it felt like it was way too long. I said, yo, let's just hit it for 4 bars and take it away, and the beat holds on its own. And I know he spent a lot of time like with this idea.
Yeah.
And this was just over text, and his response to me was like, cool, I'll do that.
Yeah.
We never really ever butt heads. It's really weird.
That's big.
Yeah. I think that's why we've been able to sustain this for so long. But he did go off and do the Pop World thing, and we split.
Yeah,
and
I think there was some
in LA Riots named John.
I think there's a site, some site out there mentions that like LA Riots is now one person.
Yeah, I had done. John and I started it, and we were together for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then John went and did the pop thing, and then I did my own thing for about 6 months, and then another partner came in, and it felt pretty organic. So we worked together for 2 years, and then we split, and then I was solo, I think, for 3 years, and then something came up where John and I had to work together. Not had to, but it was just something came up where we ended up back in the studio together, and we made a track, and that track led to another track, and then eventually, I mean, we put out Real Love on Spinnin' last year.
Yeah.
And that was like our first official, like LA Riots is back. But we had been working together for probably like a year or two before then.
Yeah.
Just together
cool.
in the studio.
That's cool. Just kind of let it happen.
Yeah. And
But so you work with, all these great labels. You have stuff out on Fool's Gold and Dimac and Spinnin' and, Bygore you mentioned. Basically all the top labels in your part of the business. What's the relationship like? Like it's very different, I think, than the sort of major label world. You're signed to, a 7-album deal or whatever. I know some of that stuff's changing too, but how is the relationship different when like you're working with all these different labels and not just one?
well, we signed pretty much single deals. We've done, I think with Dimmock we did a 3 single deal, but a lot of times they just get right of first refusal, and we know when we're making a track if it's going to fit that label.
Sure.
So, it wouldn't make sense to kind of put out a drum and bass track on Dimmock.
So what do you think you get out of those relationships? Since they're so like one record at a time.
Well, you do lose. What you lose is that label's not championing things for you as much.
Yeah.
Like you're not like we put stuff out on Fool's Gold, but we're not Fool's Gold artists.
Right.
We're not Dimmock artists.
Right.
But it's good because like now we just the stuff we're making now doesn't fit any of those labels.
Yeah.
It's funny, Real Love, we had been sending stuff to Spinnin' forever, and they always passed. And we made Real Love, and we were like, they're never going to be into this song. It doesn't fit their vibe, but I sent it to them anyways, and they got back to me so quickly. And they really pushed hard for that track. They went up against Dimmock for it. Dimmock really wanted it too, but we ended up going with Spinnin' just because they have a wider reach. And it got picked up and licensed by other labels all over the world. Like Universal picked it up in Scandinavia. Nothing Else Matters, which is Danny Howard's label which is a Sony sub-label in the UK, it picked it up there. There was Korean labels picked it up, and so
cool.
it was good. Like Dimmock is good for US stuff, but but it's good because it just gives us the freedom to work with a bunch of different labels.
Yeah.
Like right now, we just signed with Country Club Disco, which is Golf Clap's label, and we also signed with Insomniac's label In Rotation, which is the tracks that are out now.
Yeah.
We have another track coming out on Spinnin'. So basically we released around December 9th or something, we released the In Rotation tracks. And then January 29th, we're going to release the Country Club Disco tracks. And then January, I think 15th or 16th, we'll release the Spinnin' tracks track. And then March, like 2nd or 3rd, we release on Psycho Disco, which is Treasure Fingers label.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're just putting out.
That's a lot.
Yeah, on other labels as they pop up.
Busy.
Yeah. Yeah, our output last year we put out, I think, 2 tracks.
Yeah.
And then the Tricky remix before the end of the year, and then that's when the In Rotation stuff came out. But we normally put out a lot more than that, and so this year we'll have 3 or 4 tracks out within the first few months.
That's awesome.
And I feel like we're in a better place and better vibe with our music right now. We're feeling it a lot more. Whereas before it was like chasing, and we didn't really have a clear path of what we wanted to do because we didn't have a plan. And now we kind of have a plan. We know what we want to do. We know the clubs we want to play. We know the people we want to work with.
So how did that plan come together?
It was more dictated by the style of music that we're making now.
Yeah.
We are going a little bit more housey and techy.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of our peers are veering off into the trap world or the dubstep world. And then some of them are going to this, like, I don't want to call it like this new kind of like form of house, but like kind of this night bass confessions sound.
Yeah.
It's a little bit darker. And then we actually have just gone full on like more just tech house and house.
Yeah.
And getting more into like the European kind of vibe with things. And yeah, we just want to play at certain clubs now, and we want to play alongside certain people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that does come into play with a lot of like what we're saying no to nowadays too. Like no to certain club plays,
Sure.
Even which, it's basically turning down money.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like I'll be in a much happier place.
Yeah.
Mentally. Yeah.
What do you see like when you started, you mentioned like the blogs were really driving this business. There's Blog House was like a genre.
Oh yeah.
And I remember we put out something I did with Mazda. We put out like a promo record, and like in an hour like 250 blogs had picked it up, and it was just like and then before that, I saw you guys just did Power Tools. So Richard's a friend, he's been on the show, and I think his era before the blog thing was like radio. Like you had Liquid Todd, you had Jason Bentley, you had these guys in certain markets who would really drive Sirius, XM, the dance stations there, whatever. We're kind of driving that business. What's driving the business today?
Spotify, socials. I feel like Instagram. It's the music's gotten shorter too. If you notice, like
the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shorter intros, shorter outros.
Yeah.
Just hit them over the head and move on to the next one.
So does that change, other than, it sounds like maybe it changes the song length.
Yeah.
But like, does it change how you make and
them.
release music and get the word out and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, playlists nowadays. It's funny, when we put out this new track, House Philosophy, on In Rotation, which is a pretty unknown label. It's Insomniac's new label, and it's for less radio oriented tracks. They put out the radio vocally stuff and bigger tracks on Insomniac, so it doesn't have a big reach. I mean, the track's been out like maybe 5 weeks. It's about to hit 500,000 streams on Spotify, which is really good.
It's great.
Because it's a 7-minute long tech house track with no clear vocal. It's a sample of a guy talking. It's not even singing. One day it came out, and Kramer, who used to be at Sirius, who now runs Spotify's electronic division, he just tweeted at me something like, I think it said "damn," and it was a link to the track. And that was like maybe a week after it came out. And the next day it appeared on a playlist with like 200,000 followers.
Yeah.
The day after that it appeared on one with 500,000 followers. The next day it appeared on one I think it was 800,000 followers, then 1.2 million, then 1.6 million. And so it's on all these playlists. And, you know, it's a 7-minute long tech house track. It shouldn't have 500,000 streams in 5 weeks. But, and then Liquid Todd, who you mentioned, put it on Beta BPM, which is where they premiere new tracks. And then the flip side of it, Ladies Man got picked up and put into rotation on Sirius. And then, you know, Swedish Eagle and Richard Vision have been, have been playing it. But a lot of it comes down to relationships. Like, I mean, I knew Kramer from the from the Sirius days and Liquid Todd because I would go to the station sometimes to do. I did a hosting thing there one time where I was on the air, and then one month, it was a December, which had 5 Fridays in it. So I did 5 mixes for them that premiered every Friday. And, you know, I see these guys down at Winter Music Conference and at different events. And, you know, we all stay in touch on social media. So, yeah, a lot of that is being driven through that. Yeah. Getting reposted on SoundCloud helps a lot, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I don't mess with SoundCloud that much anymore.
I mean, it seems
I don't
to
like
have changed so much.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, our account is flagged
Yeah.
as belonging to like Warner Brothers or something.
Oh,
like
really?
we're signed to Warner Brothers, which we're not. We've done a remix for them, but
Right.
so
Yeah, it just-
I can't put anything up and make it downloadable.
Mm-hmm.
It says that anything I upload is owned by, and I've bought a membership until 2019
Right.
on this to, you know, to put my music out sometimes for like free downloads and stuff. So I don't really put up a lot on there. I'll repost things that people put up, but yeah, I hate SoundCloud, honestly. I don't even listen to it.
Yeah, it seems like they haven't really.
No. And the thing
out.
is, I've emailed them.
Yeah.
Hey man, this is going on. We're not signed to any labels. And they're like, oh, we can't help you. You need to hit up the label.
Right.
Like, what label? We're not signed to a label. Like, and who do we contact over there?
Right.
And I've reached out to Warner. I've reached out to Warner Chappell, their publishing division. Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Ugh,
So
that sucks.
I just gave up.
Yeah.
So #fuck SoundCloud.
What's the?
But it's good. It's good if you're a rapper, I guess. Like all these dudes are coming up in that
Sure.
world, like big,
Absolutely.
like Lil Pump, and
Yeah.
that isn't. That, he's a
Yeah,
SoundCloud
yeah.
rapper's a thing, right?
Yeah. That's. I mean, this is that era
Yeah.
for sure.
SoundCloud and really bad tattoos. That's what's going on right now. Like that's what you need to get into the rap game now. Is like horrible tattoos. I'm going to a tattoo appointment right after this.
Nice.
And I just got this like 3 days ago.
Oh, that one's cool. The bee.
Yeah, little honeybee.
Nice. What's the hardest part of the job?
I don't know. I think just the exhaustion that comes along with touring a lot, because like people don't realize like it's not like the band days where like you had a tour and you went on a logical route. Like,
Right.
sometimes like I've been in. I remember one time I was in LA on a Wednesday, and you got to think like they're ahead in time too. Like Philippines on a Friday, Tokyo on a Saturday, home by 1 p.m. on a Sunday. Like, you know, you just
Brutal.
and also we're DJs, and you're playing till the sun comes up in some
Yeah, it's
places.
not-
Like,
It's not.
and so you're in a different time zone,
Yeah.
doing that. Then your ears are ringing because most of us have tinnitus.
Yeah.
I do. It's ringing right now.
Yeah.
Then you go to the airport, and it gets to be exhausting, and you wear yourself down. I mean, Avicii like had to like, you know, fall out for a while, and
Yeah.
I mean my touring schedule was nowhere near what that guy's is. But
Sure.
you know, and I don't think people can relate to that. They're like, "What do you mean you're tired?
Right.
You're tired, so you're gonna like quit?"
Right.
And no, you're.
Yeah.
There's tired, and then there's just like you're just broken down, exhausted.
Well, I think it's like disorienting.
Yeah.
When you're just in different time zones
Yeah.
and you're in different cities and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but like
It's
honestly,
never happened to me, but I get it.
honestly, at the end of the day, like there's not a lot of bad that comes along with this. So if
That's
if
pretty
that's
cool.
all you got to deal with, then
Absolutely.
you know, and like I said, like before we were touring constantly, and then things slowed down, and I know that this time around I'm going to kind of stop and smell the roses. I have a picture
Nice.
on my computer that I always look at, and I always remember now to stop and smell the roses. And it's a blurry picture on a BlackBerry, so this was like back before things were cool, and it was dusk, and it's a blurry picture of the Colosseum in Rome, as the sky's like purplish behind it, and it's blurry because you could tell we're moving, and that's my experience of Rome. Like one of the raddest places to go.
Yeah,
I should have taken the time.
But you don't see it.
But I
Yeah.
played a gig there, and the next day I was at the airport, and it's just like, oh man, I really wish I could go to Rome one day. And it's like, oh wait, I've been. I just, it didn't happen.
Yeah. No, that sucks.
So this time around,
Sure.
I'm going to schedule in some me time.
When you can, that's the thing to do, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, they're going to kick us out of here, but I
Okay.
got a little, I got to do a little lightning round before I let you go. Tell me one decision that changed your life forever.
Oh, when I quit working and started DJing, because it had always been a hobby of mine, you know, and I didn't plan on, it wasn't, like a lot of these people set out to be like, oh, I want to be a DJ, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to be a DJ. I wanted stable money, you know? I mean, I wanted security, and there's no security in this. Yeah. And especially in that new scene that we were starting too. And this isn't like the David Guetta Afrojack money.
Right.
This is like, you were playing on shitty sound systems, like really bad monitors, I would throw fits sometimes when I would show up places and then they would have shitty monitors. They'd be like, well, what do you mean? Like, little, if you're playing on a wedge, that's not a DJ monitor. Right. That's a band monitor.
Yeah.
I know this because I played at my buddy's party the other night for his birthday, and I was on a wedge, and I was like, oh my God, this sucks. Like, but it wasn't like, you weren't making money hand over fist back in those days.
Sure.
And nothing's guaranteed. And we had only had like a couple tracks out, so, and we didn't know where this was going. But, this eventually turned into what it is today. And now, DJs have a section on the Forbes list.
Yeah. It's big.
Yeah.
Complete this sentence. I don't have talent, I have blank.
Just determination, I guess. Yeah.
So if I worked for you, if I was on your team, or I was Zach's assistant or something, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
They don't hear from me very much.
No?
I'm a very sustaining person. Like, I do a lot of stuff on my own. And I don't really complain or reach out that much.
Okay. That's a fun client to have.
Yeah.
Who would you be most excited to learn as a fan of your work?
Man, that's a good one. I don't know, just like some of the bands it's crazy though, because like I've remixed some of the bands that I've been fans of, you know? And then found out that they're fans of ours because that's how we got the remix. Like Kings of Leon, I love those guys. Like we did a remix for them. Granted, I think one of them went to rehab right after, and that remix album never came out. But a lot of people did remixes. Like they put one of them on.
Maybe he played it in rehab and helped him get through.
Yeah, exactly.
We can tell ourselves that.
I don't know. That's a good question. It would definitely have to be somebody like more in like the techno kind of world, like people that like are involved in what we do, but like really like get it, and there's no frills that go along with it. They just,
So if you found out like so you get a call that someone's playing the new track.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck, that's incredible. Like who is that?
Carl Cox, Pete Tongs, like people like that.
Yeah.
I feel like we might get a Pete Tong play though, because we're on Country Club Disco now, and he sports a lot of that stuff.
Nice.
But like if Carl Cox or like Green Velvet or somebody is playing one of our tracks, that'd be pretty rad. I mean, because we've had like the Tiestos and the, the Aviciis and all those people in that world, and playing our stuff. But yeah, I'll tell you this, I used to be a big fan of Incubus back in the day.
Oh, really?
And then I met like Kilmore.
Yeah.
He's a DJ.
Yeah.
And he's like a fan of our stuff, and
Yeah.
we actually hang out and go on ski trips and stuff
that's
together.
cool.
Yeah.
I've known Mikey a long time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I went to, I I think 3 of their shows on their last tour.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the ones around Southern California, because he just puts me on, and I just go, and it never gets old.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah, very good show. And have you heard Brandon's like solo project, Sons of the
No.
Sea? It's really good.
Yeah.
Really kind of more of that, if not now, when,
Mm.
that album kind of vibe
Mhm.
to it, which is one of my favorite albums.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite city to travel to?
I like Barcelona as far as city. I like going back to, that's probably Hawaii up there on the screen.
I'm
I
sure.
like going to Hawaii a lot and Bali a lot.
Did you ever play the game like we sit at home and try to figure out what's...
I've been sitting there, I was like, that last cityscape that just went by, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that looks like Hong Kong or Tokyo.
There is a Hong Kong,
I think that one, it was...
and there's I found one was Doha.
Oh.
It took us like 20 minutes
Oh.
to figure it out.
Yeah. That looks like Kauai.
And yeah, I bet. And then there's a new thing. There's like this frozen tundra. Like that. We're just never gonna. It's like a
Oh,
glacier.
that's New York City.
Are you a reader? What's the last great book you read?
Man, I'm not a big reader. I read a lot of magazines and
Yeah?
a lot of blog
Like
stuff.
still in print?
Yeah, I mean, I have the Fire and Fury book on my laptop. I'm gonna read, or on my iPad. I need
Yeah.
to get around to reading that.
Yeah.
You know, stuff that really makes me think, like a lot of the Malcolm Gladwell stuff.
Mm.
It's weird. I read a lot of military stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because my dad's
Well,
special
you have
forces.
that background. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've read what is the guy that I read the book on the guy that killed
So
Osama
like,
bin Laden.
yeah, the SEAL Team 6 stuff.
Yeah, I
read one of those. Now I forget which one, because there's a few guys that are kind of claiming.
Yeah, but the
that,
first
and-
one, the first one that came out is the one that I read, and then the guy that Mark Wahlberg did that movie about the guy that when the SEAL team lost a bunch of people.
Right. Yeah.
So I read that, and then he has another
That's
one
cool.
actually. People don't realize he went back into service, because that was all in Afghanistan. After he healed up, he went back to Iraq.
Right.
And then was over there, and he has a book out called Service, and so I read that.
Ah.
I read the stuff on the Blackwater, the whole Blackwater thing, because I'm big into how they're privatizing the military, so that we
Sure.
don't have to report on all those losses.
Of course. Yeah, there's less accountability and.
Yeah, and then that guy,
Better
literally,
money.
Eric Prince, he had to kind of not talk about any of that stuff when they were getting
Right.
blown up in the press. And then once, I guess, he got out of that world and Blackwater was no more, he put out a book, his own book, which is kind of a rebuttal to that. And I just read that recently. That was really good. But that guy's like crazy, I think. He's like Team Trump, like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like big on spreading Christianity too. I think like that's
Awesome.
that.
At the barrel of a gun. That's the way
Yeah.
to do it. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Oh, Blow.
Yeah.
Yeah, hands down. Because I love the style in that. The
That's a
soundtrack
great
on that's
movie.
amazing. Who did the soundtrack for that? I know her. Amanda Demme.
Amanda Demme.
Yeah, she did the soundtrack.
Yeah.
That
I'm
soundtrack.
looking up this book.
So good.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
For sure. I gotta find this book. Too. I don't know. I wonder if it's the same one.
Oh, the
Yeah. I don't know. I should do this later, but it's gonna drive me crazy. Whoa. Who's your favorite DJ?
man. I like watching Richie Houghton. Yeah, he goes in.
Yeah.
Carl Cox. I like watching Carl Cox. I like watching what people do. Jackmaster.
Uh-huh.
Guys that like really, get into it. A new guy that I've been watching a lot is Patrick Topping. He's really good because he plays stuff that
I don't know
his
him.
selection is really good. He's on Hot Creations. He's,
Okay.
I think he was just on the cover of DJ Mag.
Nice.
But yeah, he's part of Jamie Jones's crew.
Uh-huh.
But his DJing's really good too. I like guys that just like are just. It's funny because like if you ask a lot of people now, and not to take away from what they're doing or anything, like, oh, who's your favorite DJ? It's like, oh, Steve Aoki, David Guetta, you know, and it's just like you.
No one has said either one of those guys on this show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they're not known for that, you know.
No.
I mean, like, you know.
No, if you named one of those,
Yeah.
I would.
Like
I'd have
A-Track.
to look sideways at you.
A-Track, you know, there's
A-Track's
different
an incredible
kind of,
DJ.
yeah, there's different kinds of DJing. I'm
For sure.
skill-wise, like, you know, those guys can't be, you know, you know, and it's really interesting. Like a lot of, and I've said this on Twitter before and gotten a lot of shit for it, but like open format DJs will own electronic DJs, like a lot of times. Like
Yeah.
open format DJing is not the easiest thing to do.
Sure.
Like, you know,
Yeah, you have different tempos, different moods,
you're playing all over
different-
the place. Like you've
For
got to
sure.
figure out how to, you know, take into account this vocal that's coming in. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a big appreciation for a lot of those guys. I hung out a lot with AM back in the day too,
Yeah.
before he passed, and yeah, just the stuff he would do is just incredible.
Absolutely. Well, man, it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate
thanks
you
for having
coming
me.
through and sharing the great stories with us.
Cool.
How do we find LA Riots online?
LARiotsmusic.com, links to everything, like our Twitter, which is LA Riots. It's a combination of either LA Riots or LA Riots Official for
Okay.
For our Instagrams and Twitters and all that stuff.
Is there one where you're most active?
We've kind of not been as active as we have been, but
Yeah.
Instagram is where we post a lot of our stuff.
Okay.
But like literally like maybe 3 posts a month now. No, it's just like
There's a
I
lot
used
of
to
other
post
shit
a
to
lot
do.
of things about my dog and like, oh, I'm gonna go hiking today and here's what I ate.
Right.
And then about 2 years ago, I just like
Yeah,
stopped
stuff
all
wears
that.
out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't have a camera crew following me around, which a lot of the DJs do now. So
Yeah.
they get a lot of content. You know, content is king. I get that, but like it's just not my thing.
It's got to be for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a personal Instagram that I've had for a little over a year, and I think I have like 9 posts on there.
Nice.
None of it's of food.
You're keeping up.
I think there's 1 coffee picture.
Nice.
Yeah. But that was in New Zealand. And it was, yeah,
Sure.
more the nostalgia.
I get it. Yeah, cool. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Yo, that was Daniel, one half of LA Riots. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave us a comment on Twitter, on Facebook. Leave us a review on iTunes. Leave us something. Leave us alone. Come back next week, more Rebel Radio.